Taeyang Park was having a terrible day. His shirt was wrinkled, his coffee had spilled on his pants during the shuttle ride, and now he was lost somewhere in the massive Galactic Council Station Omega-7's. All he wanted to do was fix the broken translation matrix in Conference Room B7 and go back to his quarters. He was an engineer, not a diplomat. He fixed things. That was his job. But the real Earth ambassador, some important man named Hyun Choi, was stuck somewhere in deep space because his ship's navigation system had failed. So the station was full of humans running around trying to prepare for some big meeting. Taeyang just wanted to stay out of the way and do his work. The station was enormous. It floated in neutral space far from any star system. Hundreds of alien species worked here, and Taeyang still found it strange to walk past beings with 4 arms or scales or tentacles. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago. Humans were still the new kids, the species that barely knew how to leave their own solar system. Taeyang checked his datapad again. Conference room B7 should be right ahead. But when he walked through the tall silver doors, he knew immediately something was wrong. This room was huge, with a domed ceiling that showed stars outside. Rows of seats circled a central platform, and they were filled with aliens he had never seen before. They looked like a mix of big cats and reptiles with golden scales and sharp eyes. They wore elegant robes in deep purple and black. Everyone turned to look at him. Taeyang froze. This was definitely not Conference Room B7. This was some kind of ceremony. He should leave. He should back away slowly and find the right room. But then one of the tall aliens at the entrance gestured at him with what looked like a smile. The alien pointed to an ornate chair sitting alone on the platform. The chair was beautiful, made of dark wood with silver carvings. It looked important. Taeyang's brain was tired. He had been working for 16 hours straight. The translation matrix in the real B7 was giving him nightmares, and he just wanted to sit down for a moment. The alien seemed friendly enough, pointing at the chair like it was meant for him. Maybe this was some kind of waiting area. Maybe they were being polite. Taeyang walked forward and sat down in the chair. It was very comfortable. He pulled out his datapad and started reviewing the matrix schematics. Maybe he could solve the problem while he waited for someone to tell him where B7 actually was. The room went completely silent. Taeyang looked up. Every single alien was staring at him. Some had their mouths open. Others had stood up from their seats. On a raised platform across from him, one alien sat on a throne that made his chair look simple. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with golden scales that shimmered under the lights. Her eyes were a deep violet color, and they were locked on him. She stood up slowly. Her purple robes flowed around her like water. When she moved, everyone else in the room seemed to hold their breath. The alien queen walked down from her throne. She crossed the space between them with smooth, careful steps. Her eyes never left Taeyang's face. He wanted to run. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain that he was just a lost engineer who sat in the wrong chair. But something about her gaze kept him frozen in place. She stopped right in front of him. She was even more impressive up close. Her scales caught the light like jewels. Her face was sharp and beautiful in a way that was completely alien but somehow still made sense. She tilted her head slightly, studying him the way someone might study a puzzle. Then she turned to face the assembled crowd. When she spoke, her voice was deep and clear. The words came out in a language Taeyang didn't know, but his translator earpiece kicked in after a moment. "This is my husband," she said. Taeyang's brain stopped working. The words made no sense. Husband? He had just sat down. He didn't even know her name. This had to be a translation error. The matrix he was supposed to fix must have broken something in his earpiece too. Then the alien queen smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her mouth. But it changed her whole face. She looked almost kind, almost happy. The room exploded with noise. Aliens started talking all at once. Some sounded angry. Others sounded shocked. A few sounded excited. Armed guards in matching armor rushed forward and surrounded Taeyang's chair. They didn't point weapons at him, but they formed a tight circle around him. One older alien with silver scales and scars on his face stood up from the front row. He shouted something that sounded like an objection. The queen raised one hand and everyone went quiet again. She spoke again, this time in English. Her accent was strange but clear. "Do you accept the choosing, human?" Taeyang stared at her. I think there's been a mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I was looking for conference room B7. The Queen's smile grew slightly wider. You sat in the suitor's chair during my gaze hour. In my culture, this is a declaration. You have declared yourself worthy to stand beside me. Now I have accepted. The question is whether you will honor your declaration. But I didn't know, Taeyang said, his voice rising in panic. I just sat down. I was tired. I've been working on a broken translation matrix for 16 hours. The old alien with scars stepped forward. You see, my queen? He admits his ignorance. He mocks our traditions with his carelessness. This human is unworthy. The Queen's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Chief Advisor Kurnoth, I have made my choice. The human sat in the chair. He looked me in the eyes. He did not bow, did not beg, did not try to impress me. He simply existed as himself. Do you know how rare that is? She looked back at Taeyang. My people are the Velkari Empire. We control 47 star systems. I am Queen Velsira. For the past 3 months, I have sat through this ceremony every week. Warriors, politicians, scientists, merchants, all trying to win my favor, all lying through their teeth about how worthy they are. She gestured at him. Then you walk in, sit down, and read your data pad. You didn't even notice me. That is either the bravest or stupidest thing anyone has ever done in this room. Taeyang's hands were shaking. Probably stupid, he whispered. The Queen laughed. It was a strange sound, like rocks sliding over metal, but genuine. Probably, she agreed. But I have made my choice. Now you must make yours. Accept the bond and face the trials to prove your worth. Or refuse and bring shame to your species. That's not fair, Taeyang said. I didn't mean to do any of this. Life rarely is fair, Queen Velsira said. Her voice was softer now. But sometimes the wrong chair in the wrong room at the wrong time is exactly where we need to be. Taeyang pulled out his data pad with shaking hands. He needed to call someone, anyone. The human ambassador, the Earth Embassy. His mother, someone who could fix this disaster. He typed a quick message to the Earth diplomatic channel. This is Taeyang Park, engineer. I think I just married an alien queen. Please advise, urgent. The guards were still surrounding him. The whole room was watching. Queen Velsira stood there waiting for his answer with that small, mysterious smile on her face. Taeyang looked down at his coffee-stained pants and wrinkled shirt. He was supposed to be fixing a translation matrix. Instead, he was apparently engaged to the ruler of a galactic empire. This was definitely the worst day of his life. Or maybe, possibly, the most important one. He really couldn't tell which. The emergency call came through to Earth at 3 a.m, Seoul time. The president of Earth's unified government nearly fell out of bed when she read the message. An engineer named Taeyang Park had somehow gotten engaged to an alien queen. The Velkari Queen, the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Nobody knew whether to celebrate or panic. Back on Station Omega 7, Taeyang sat in a private room with 2 very stressed Earth officials. They had pulled him out of the ceremony hall an hour ago, and they had been arguing ever since. You sat in what chair? The older official asked for the 5th time. Her name was Minji, and she looked like she wanted to scream. The fancy one, Taeyang said miserably. I thought they were being polite. I was tired. I wasn't thinking. The younger official, a man named Doyun, was pacing back and forth. Do you understand what you've done? The Velkari Empire controls 47 star systems. They have military technology we can't even dream about. And their queen just claimed you as her chosen partner in front of her entire court. I know, Taeyang said. I was there. But what am I supposed to do about it? Minji rubbed her temples. If you refuse her choice, it's a massive insult. The Velkari take honor very seriously. They could declare war over something like this. War? Taeyang's voice cracked. Over me sitting in a chair. Over you disrespecting their queen, Doyun corrected. To them, you made a declaration. You told everyone in that room that you were worthy to stand beside her. Then she accepted. Backing out now makes her look foolish. Makes her look weak. Taeyang put his head in his hands. I just wanted to fix the translation matrix and go home. Well, you can't go home now, Minji said. She pulled up a holographic display. We've been researching Velkari marriage customs. It's not like human marriage. It's more like a political partnership. A bond. What does that mean? Taeyang asked. It means the person chosen by the monarch has to prove they're worthy. Doyun explained. There are 3 trials. Courage, wisdom, and innovation. If you pass all 3, you become the prince consort. You'd be the queen's official partner in ruling the empire. And if I fail? The two officials looked at each other. Minji cleared her throat. The last person who was chosen and failed the trials was exiled to a prison moon for dishonoring the queen. Taeyang felt sick. This can't be happening. But if you succeed, Doyen said quickly, Earth gains an incredibly powerful ally. The Valkyrie would be bound to protect us. We'd have access to their technology, their trade routes, everything. It would change humanity's position in the galaxy overnight. So no pressure then, Taeyang muttered. There was a knock on the door. A Valkyrie guard entered and spoke in their rumbling language. Taeyang's translator picked it up. The queen requests the human's presence now. Minji and Doyun both stood up. We'll come with you, Minji said. No, the guard said firmly. The queen wishes to speak with him alone. Taeyang's stomach dropped, but he stood up on shaky legs and followed the guard out of the room. They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Other aliens stopped and stared as they passed. Word had already spread about what happened in the ceremony hall. The guard led him to a different section of the station, one with higher ceilings and more elegant decorations. They stopped at a door marked with Valkyrie symbols. The guard opened it and gestured for Taeyang to enter. Inside was a beautiful room with huge windows showing the stars outside. Queen Velsira stood by the window, still wearing her purple robes. She turned when he entered. Close the door, she said softly. Taeyang did. His heart was pounding. They were alone now, and she was much bigger than him. Those claws on her hands looked very sharp, but the queen just walked to a table and poured 2 glasses of something blue and glowing. She handed one to Taeyang. It's safe for humans. I checked. Sit. Taeyang sat on a couch that was sized for Valkyrie, which meant his feet barely touched the floor. He sipped the drink. It tasted like berries and electricity. The queen sat across from him. Without all the ceremony and watching eyes, she looked different. Tired, maybe. You're afraid, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Taeyang admitted. There was no point in lying. Good, she said. That means you understand the situation. Let me be honest with you, Taeyang Park, I did not choose you by accident. But I sat in the chair by accident, he said. Yes, but I could have dismissed it. I could have said you were ignorant of our customs and released you. But I didn't. She took a drink from her own glass. Do you know how long I've been queen? No, Your Majesty. 8 years. 8 years of meetings, ceremonies, politics, and lies. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone performs for me. They show me their best face, their strongest side, their cleverest words. She looked out at the stars. I'm tired of performances. Taeyang didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet. Then you walked in, she continued. Wearing wrinkled clothes with a stain on your pants. You sat in the most sacred chair in my empire and read your datapad. You didn't even look at me at first. Do you know what I thought? That I was an idiot? The queen's mouth curved in that small smile again. I thought, here is someone real. Someone too tired or too focused on his work to pretend. And when you finally looked at me, there was no calculation in your eyes. Just confusion. Just honesty. She turned back to face him. I am surrounded by people who want to use me, impress me, or control me. I chose you because you are the first person in years who didn't want anything from me. I still don't want anything, Taeyang said, except maybe to go home. I know, she said gently, but we don't always get what we want. My advisor, Kirnoth, is furious with my choice. He thinks humans are weak, too new to the galaxy, unworthy of the Valkyrie Empire. He will demand you face the trials. Can I refuse? You can, but it would shame your entire species. Earth would lose face in the Galactic Council, and I would lose the respect of my court for making a foolish choice. She set down her glass. I won't force you, but I am asking. Face the trials. Show them what humans can do. Taeyang thought about Earth, about his sister Sora back home, about his parents who had worked so hard to send him to engineering school, about all the humans who were trying to find their place among the stars. What if I fail? He asked quietly. Then we both suffer the consequences, Queen Velsira said. But I don't think you will fail. You fixed a quantum engine with spare parts and tape when you were 23. I read your file. You solve impossible problems. That's what humans do, isn't it? You adapt. You innovate. You survive. You read my file? After you left the ceremony hall, yes. I wanted to understand who you really were. She stood up. I must return to the council. They are demanding answers. Tomorrow Kirnoth will formally challenge your worthiness. You will have 1 lunar cycle to complete the 3 trials. Use tonight to prepare. And Taiyang, yes? When you sat in that chair, you looked peaceful. Like you had found a moment of rest in a busy day. That's why I smiled. Because I understood that feeling. She walked to the door and paused. Sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, even if we don't understand why yet. Then she was gone, leaving Taeyang alone with his glowing blue drink and 1,000 racing thoughts. He pulled out his datapad and made a call. His best friend Jiho answered after 3 rings. Taeyang, do you know what time it is? Wait, aren't you in space? Jiho, I need your help, Taeyang said. And you're not going to believe what just happened. When he finished explaining, there was a long silence. Then Jiho started laughing. He laughed so hard he couldn't breathe. You sat in the wrong chair and married an alien queen. I can't. This is the best thing I've ever heard. It's not funny, Taeyang protested. It's extremely funny. Dude, you're living every sci-fi fan's dream and you're complaining about it. There are trials. I could be exiled to a prison moon. Jiho's laughter faded. Wait, you're serious? What kind of trials? Taeyang explained everything. When he finished, Jiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm coming up there. You're going to need help. And Taeyang? You can do this. You're the smartest person I know. And the luckiest, apparently. Who else accidentally marries space royalty? Despite everything, Taeyang smiled. Thanks, Jiho. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we figure out how to keep you off that prison moon. After they hung up, Taeyang stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, his normal life. But that life felt very far away now. Tomorrow the trials would begin. Tomorrow, he would have to prove he was worthy of standing beside a queen. He took another sip of the glowing blue drink and wondered if it was too late to just fix the translation matrix and pretend none of this ever happened. Probably. Definitely. Yes. The trial of courage began 3 days after Jiho arrived at the station. Taeyang stood in a transport ship with 6 Velkari warriors, heading toward the largest moon of Velkar Prime. The moon was called Kreshnar, which translated roughly to the proving ground. It was not a friendly place. Jiho had tried to come with him, but the rules were clear. Taeyang had to face the trial alone. Queen Velsira watched from the station as his ship departed. She had not spoken to him since their private conversation, but she had sent him a small device that would record everything for the trial judges to review. Chief Advisor Kirnoth stood beside the Queen, his scarred face showing nothing but contempt. 3 days, he had said before Taeyang boarded the ship. 3 days to hunt and survive against the apex predators of Kreshnar. Most Velkari warriors train for years before attempting this trial. This human will not last 1 day. Now as the ship descended toward the moon's surface, Taeyang could see why. The landscape below was dense jungle mixed with rocky mountains. Everything looked dark and hostile. The ship's pilot, a young Velkari warrior named Taehi, glanced back at him. I have seen many attempt this trial. The key is to keep moving. The predators are faster than you, stronger than you. Don't try to fight them. What should I do then? Taeyang asked. Pray to your human gods, Taehi said. But her tone wasn't unkind. And be clever. That's what your species is known for, yes? Being clever? The ship landed in a clearing. The warriors gave Taeyang a pack with basic supplies. Water purification tablets, emergency rations, a knife, rope, and a fire starter. No weapons. No communication device except the recorder. The rules stated he could use anything he found on the moon, but he had to survive on his own. 3 days, the lead warrior said. We will return to this exact spot. If you are not here, we assume you are dead. Then they left. The ship lifted off and Taeyang was alone. The jungle was immediately loud. Strange bird-like creatures screamed in the trees. Something large moved through the undergrowth nearby. The air was thick and hot, and it smelled like rotting plants and musk. Taeyang activated the recorder and started talking, mostly to keep himself calm. Day 1, hour 1. I'm in the jungle. I can hear things that probably want to eat me. This was a terrible idea. He started walking. Staying in the clearing felt like standing in the middle of a target. He needed to find shelter, water, and a way to avoid becoming dinner for whatever lived here. By the time the sun set, which happened quickly on this moon, Taeyang had learned several important things. First, the predators here were smart. He had seen one stalking him from the trees. a creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard. It watched him for an hour before disappearing. Second, the jungle was full of useful materials. He had found strong vines, sharp rocks, and some plants that Jiho had taught him about during their xenobiology study sessions. He made camp in a small cave on a hillside. It wasn't much, but the entrance was narrow, which meant large predators couldn't easily get in. He started a small fire and ate one of his rations while thinking. The trial wanted him to hunt and survive. Everyone expected him to fight the predators like a warrior would. But Taeyang wasn't a warrior. He was an engineer, and engineers solve problems with tools and planning, not muscles. On day 2, he started building. Using the vines and rope, he created a series of traps around his cave. Simple pit traps covered with leaves, snares that would trigger if something heavy walked through them. He even built a crude alarm system using hollow bamboo-like plants that would clatter together if anything disturbed them. Then he started thinking about the predators themselves. They were smart, yes, but were they problem solvers? He spent the afternoon observing a smaller creature, something that looked like a 6-legged fox. It was hunting those screaming bird things. But it was also being hunted by the bigger predators. Taeyang had an idea. He took some of his rations and left small pieces near the smaller predator's den. At first it ran away, but hunger eventually won. It came back and ate the food. Taeyang left more food, closer each time. By evening, the fox thing was following him at a distance. Not friendly, but curious, cautious. "I'm trying to make friends," Taeyang told the recorder. "The big predators are a problem for both of us. Maybe we can help each other." On day 3, everything changed. Taeyang woke up to the sound of something massive moving through the jungle. His alarm system went wild, bamboo clattering everywhere. He grabbed his knife and looked out from his cave. What he saw made his blood freeze. The creature was enormous, 12 feet tall, walking on 4 legs with massive claws and teeth like swords. Its scales were black and reflected no light. This was an apex predator, the kind that the Valkyrie warriors feared. And it was headed straight for his cave. Taeyang couldn't fight it. Running would just make him prey. So he did the only thing he could think of. He activated one of his pit traps. The creature stepped right on it and fell, roaring with rage. But the pit wasn't deep enough. It would climb out in seconds. That's when the fox thing appeared. It had followed Taeyang, and now it started making sharp barking sounds. Not at Taeyang. At the creature in the pit. Suddenly, more fox things appeared from the jungle, 6 of them all making noise, distracting the big predator. Taeyang saw his chance. He grabbed the rope and the sharpest rocks he had. While the fox things kept the predator busy, he climbed up the trees and set up a trigger system. When the creature finally climbed out of the pit, it was angry and focused on the smaller animals. It chased them right under Taeyang's trap. Large rocks, held up by vines and rope, came crashing down. They didn't kill the creature, but they hit hard enough to stun it. Taeyang dropped from the tree and ran, the fox things scattering in all directions. Behind him, he could hear the predator recovering and roaring, but it didn't chase him. It was hurt and angry, looking for easier prey elsewhere. Taeyang ran all the way back to the landing clearing. The sun was rising, marking the end of the 3 days. He collapsed on the ground, breathing hard, and waited. The fox thing appeared at the edge of the clearing, watched him for a moment, then disappeared back into the jungle. The transport ship arrived an hour later. The warriors looked shocked to see him alive. Taehi actually smiled. "You survived," she said. "How?" "I didn't fight," Taeyang said, still catching his breath. "I built traps, made friends, used my brain instead of my muscles." Back on the station, the entire Valkyrie court watched the recording of his trial. They saw his traps, his problem-solving, his alliance with the smaller predators. They saw him escape the apex predator using tools and planning instead of strength. Kirnoth stood up. "This is not proper hunting. He used tricks." "Cowardice!" But Queen Velsira raised her hand. "He survived 3 days on Kreshnar against creatures that have killed trained warriors. He showed courage by facing the trial. He showed innovation by using the resources available. And he showed wisdom by understanding he didn't need to fight to prove his worth." She looked directly at Kirnoth. "The human has passed the trial of courage. More than that, he has shown us something valuable. He has a solution to a problem that has troubled us for generations." She gestured to the recording. "Our colony ships have struggled with the predators on Kreshnar and worlds like it. We try to fight them, kill them all. But this human showed another way. Coexistence using smaller predators to control larger ones. Building defenses that don't require constant fighting. This is knowledge worth more than a simple hunt. Taeyang stood in the center of the court, still dirty from the jungle, his clothes torn. He caught Queen Velsira's eye. She gave him that small smile. The one that made him think maybe, just maybe, she had known all along what he would do. Kirnoth's face was dark with anger. "One trial," he growled. "He has two more. The trial of wisdom will break him." But Jiho, watching from the visitors' gallery, was grinning. He leaned over to Minji and whispered, "That's my friend. He just taught space aliens how to deal with monsters using fox friends and rope." Minji shook her head, but she was smiling too. Humanity just changed how the Velkari Empire thinks about survival. Not bad for an engineer who sat in the wrong chair. That night, Taeyang slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke up, he found a message on his datapad. It was from Queen Velsira. Just 3 words, "You did well." Somehow that made everything worth it. Even the part where he almost got eaten by a 12-foot murder lizard. Almost. The trial of wisdom came 5 days later, and it was nothing like Taeyang expected. There was no jungle this time, no physical danger. Instead, he stood in the great library of the Velkari court, surrounded by the Empire's greatest minds. Philosophers, scientists, historians, all watching him with skeptical eyes. Chief Advisor Kirnoth placed an ancient book on the table in front of Taeyang. "The paradox of the 3 suns," he said with a satisfied smile. "A question that has challenged Velkari wisdom for 3 centuries. You have 1 day to provide an answer that the Council accepts as valid. Failure means you are unworthy." Taeyang opened the book carefully. The pages were filled with Velkari script, but his translator slowly converted the text. The problem was this. 3 civilizations lived on planets orbiting 3 different suns in a triple star system. Each civilization claimed their sun was the most important because it gave the most light. They went to war over this belief, and all 3 civilizations destroyed each other. The question was simple but impossible. Which sun was most important? Jiho, who had been allowed to observe, whispered to him, "It's a trap. Any answer you give will be wrong." "I know," Taeyang whispered back. He could see it already. If he chose one sun, he insulted the others. If he said all were equal, he ignored the fact that stars have different sizes and brightness. If he said none were important, he dismissed the fundamental truth that suns give life. Velkari scholars had been debating this for 300 years. Each answer led to a new problem. It was designed to be unsolvable from a philosophical perspective, but Taeyang wasn't a philosopher. He was an engineer. And engineers didn't solve philosophical problems. They solved practical ones. He spent the first 3 hours reading everything the Velkari had written about the paradox. There were volumes of debate, beautiful arguments about value and perspective and truth. But the more he read, the more he realized something. The Velkari were thinking about this wrong. They were treating it like a philosophy problem when it was actually an engineering problem. Taeyang called for a holographic display system. The court scholars looked confused but provided it. He started building a model. 3 suns, 3 planets. He plotted their orbits, their gravitational relationships, their radiation outputs. The scholars watched with growing confusion. What was the human doing? This was about wisdom, not mathematics. Then Taeyang added something new to the model. He showed what would happen if you removed any one of the 3 suns. The entire system collapsed. The orbits destabilized. The planets either crashed into each other or flew off into space. Without all 3 suns, there was no system. Without the system, there were no civilizations to argue about importance. He turned to face the court. "The question is wrong," he said simply. Kirnoth's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The question asks which sun is most important. But importance is a human concept. A sentient concept. The universe doesn't care about importance. The universe cares about balance." Taeyang pointed at his model. These 3 suns existed in gravitational balance. They held the system together. The civilizations existed because of this balance, not because of any single sun. When they went to war over which sun mattered most, they forgot that all 3 suns mattered equally, not because they gave equal light, but because they created the stable system that made life possible. One of the older scholars stood up, "But the text clearly states one sun gave more light than the others." "Yes," Taeyang agreed. "But light isn't the only thing that matters. One sun might give more light, another might provide gravitational stability. The third might shield the planets from cosmic radiation. They each play different roles. Asking which is most important is like asking which leg is most important when you need both to walk. The room went quiet. Scholars looked at each other. Some frowned. Others looked thoughtful. Kirnoth stood up. This is an engineering answer, not a wisdom answer. The trial requires wisdom. With respect, Taeyang said, surprised by his own boldness. Maybe wisdom is knowing when to stop arguing about philosophy and start looking at practical truth. Those three civilizations destroyed themselves fighting over a question that had no answer. The wise choice would have been to recognize their interdependence and work together. Queen Velsira, who had been silent until now, spoke. The human makes a valid point. We have spent 3 centuries debating this paradox from a philosophical perspective. We never considered that the question itself might be flawed. That is a form of wisdom we had not anticipated. Wisdom to see beyond the boundaries of the question. A younger scholar stood up. But Your Majesty, this contradicts centuries of Velkari philosophical tradition. Perhaps, the Queen said. Or perhaps it expands it. The human has shown us that sometimes wisdom means challenging the framework of the question itself. I rule that he has passed the trial of wisdom. Kirnoth's face turned dark purple with rage. This is unacceptable. He solved nothing. He simply redefined the problem. Yes, Queen Velsira said calmly. And that is exactly what we needed. Sometimes the wisest solution is to realize you've been asking the wrong question. The trial is past. But as the court began to disperse, Minji rushed up to Taeyang with a worried expression. We have a problem. A big one. She pulled up a secure channel on her datapad. Earth intelligence had intercepted communications from the Kresh Dominion, a hostile alien empire. The Kresh were planning to sabotage the final trial. They saw humanity's growing relationship with the Velkari as a threat. If Taeyang failed the trial of innovation, it would humiliate both him and Queen Velsira, damaging the human-Velkari alliance. They have agents on the station, Minji said quietly. They're going to tamper with your equipment for the final trial. Jiho pulled Taeyang aside. We need to tell the Queen, get security involved. But Taeyang shook his head. If we accuse the Kresh without proof, it could start a diplomatic incident. And if we delay the trial, Kirnoth will say I'm avoiding it because I'm afraid. So what do we do? Jiho asked. We prepare, Taeyang said. The trial of innovation is tomorrow. I have to create something that benefits the entire Velkari Empire in 24 hours. If the equipment is sabotaged, I'll just have to work with what I have. That night, Taeyang couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the trial. What could he create that would benefit an entire empire? The Velkari had technology far beyond Earth's. What could a human engineer possibly offer them? He called home. His sister Sora answered, her face appearing on the screen. Big brother, you're famous. Everyone on Earth is watching your trials. There are fan sites about you now. It's weird. Despite his stress, Taeyang smiled. How's everyone? Mom keeps crying every time your trials are on TV. Dad pretends he's not worried, but he watches every minute. And I'm just waiting for you to mess up so I can say I told you so. She grinned. But seriously, you're doing amazing. The whole planet is proud of you. After they talked, Taeyang felt a little better. He was representing all of humanity now. That was a lot of pressure, but it also meant he wasn't alone. Every human was watching, hoping, supporting him. The next morning, the trial of innovation began. Taeyang was led to a workshop filled with advanced equipment and materials. The task was simple. Create something new and useful for the Velkari Empire within 24 hours. He would be judged on creativity, practicality, and benefit to the Empire. As soon as he started examining the equipment, Taeyang knew something was wrong. The quantum scanner wasn't calibrating correctly. The molecular assembler kept throwing errors. The power converter was unstable. This was sabotage, just as Minji had warned. But he couldn't prove it, and the clock was already counting down. Kirnoth stood in the observation area with other judges, his expression satisfied. He thought Taeyang would fail. He thought the human would panic and give up. But Taeyang remembered something his engineering professor had told him years ago. When the perfect tools fail, improvise with imperfect ones. Some of humanity's greatest inventions came from making do with what we had. He pulled out his datapad and sent a message to Jiho. Remember that crazy idea we had during university? The one the professors said was too simple to work? Jiho's response came back immediately. You mean the water thing? That idea? Yes, get me the specifications now. What Taiyang was about to attempt would either make him look brilliant or completely insane. And with all of humanity watching, he really hoped it was the first one. 12 hours into the trial of innovation, Taeyang's workshop looked like a disaster zone. Broken equipment parts were scattered everywhere. The fancy alien technology that was supposed to help him had been sabotaged beyond repair. But in the center of the chaos, Taeyang was building something with his own hands using materials that most of the watching Velkari considered primitive. Jiho arrived with a team of human engineers. We got permission to assist. What do you need? Copper wire, basic filtration membranes, and every piece of quantum resonator crystal you can find, Taeyang said, not looking up from his work. And duct tape. Lots of duct tape. One of the Velkari judges looked confused. What is duct tape? Jiho grinned. Humanity's greatest invention. It's basically strong adhesive tape. We use it to fix everything. The judge looked skeptical but said nothing. They were all curious now. What was the human building with such simple materials? 6 hours before the deadline, Taeyang had a working prototype. It wasn't pretty. Parts of it were held together with duct tape and improvised brackets. But when he activated it, the device hummed to life. It took a sample of contaminated water from a nearby container, and within minutes produced clean, drinkable water. Not just clean, but perfectly pure. The judges moved closer. A water purifier? One asked. We already have water purification technology. Not like this, Taeyang said. He was exhausted but excited. Your water purifiers are advanced, but they're expensive and complex. They require rare materials and constant maintenance. This design uses quantum filtration, combined with basic mechanical separation. It's cheap to produce, easy to repair, and it can purify any liquid. Not just water. Any liquid. He demonstrated by pouring a mixture of chemicals into the machine. The device processed it and separated everything into pure components. Your empire is expanding to new colony worlds, right? Worlds where water might be contaminated with unknown chemicals or organisms? This device can handle it. And because it's so simple, colonists can build and repair them without specialized equipment. Queen Velsira stepped forward from where she had been watching. Show me the power consumption. Taeyang pulled up the readings. Minimal. It can run on solar power or any basic energy source. A single unit can provide clean water for a small settlement. Larger versions could support entire colonies. The Queen examined the device carefully. She ran her clawed fingers over the duct tape and mismatched parts. Then she smiled. You built this with broken equipment and primitive materials. Yes, Your Majesty. The good equipment was sabotaged. So I went back to basics. Human basics. Kirnoth stepped forward, his expression furious.
Sabotaged?
That's a serious accusation. Before Taeyang could respond, a new voice spoke. It's also true. A human woman in an Earth security uniform entered the workshop. Her name was Yuna, and she worked for Earth Intelligence. We caught the Kresh agents 2 hours ago. They confessed to tampering with the equipment on orders from the Kresh Dominion. They wanted to make sure the human failed. The workshop erupted in angry voices. The Kresh ambassador, who had been watching from the observation deck, stood up. His species looked like tall insects with armored shells. This is an outrageous lie. You have no proof. Yuna held up a data crystal. Full confessions. Video evidence. Communication logs. The Kresh Dominion has been trying to sabotage the human Velkari alliance from the beginning. They see it as a threat to their own expansion plans. Queen Velsira's eyes turned cold. Ambassador Kreshthor, these are serious charges. By Galactic Council law, interference in sacred trials is grounds for sanctions. The Kresh ambassador's mandibles clicked in anger. I demand trial by combat to settle this dishonor. Granted, the Queen said. Choose your champion. The ambassador gestured to a massive Kresh warrior, easily 8 feet tall with blade-like arms. He will fight the human. To the death. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at Taeyang. He was an engineer, not a fighter. The Kresh warrior would tear him apart in seconds, but Taeyang stepped forward. His heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. I accept your challenge. But not with weapons. I challenge your philosophy with ideas. What? The ambassador looked confused. You believe in domination through strength, Taeyang said. Your empire conquers others and takes what you want. But I challenge that idea. I propose a debate instead. If I can demonstrate that cooperation produces better results than conquest, you withdraw your challenge and apologize. If I fail, well then I guess your warrior can do whatever. The Galactic Council representatives who were observing the trials moved forward. This was unexpected, a philosophical debate instead of combat. It had never been done before. But it wasn't against the rules. The Kresh ambassador was trapped. If he refused, he would look weak. Fine. You have 1 hour to make your case. Taeyang looked at Jiho. Remember my thesis presentation? The one about cooperative systems versus competitive ones? Oh, this is going to be good. For the next hour, Taeyang presented a demonstration. He showed how Earth had evolved from warring nations to a unified planet. He displayed the math of game theory, showing how cooperation yielded better long-term results than constant conflict. He presented the water purifier as evidence, explaining how he was offering the design freely to the Velkari Empire instead of demanding payment or power. Your empire conquers and controls, he said, addressing the Kresh ambassador directly. But that requires constant military presence, constant fear, constant resources devoted to holding what you've taken. Now imagine if instead you traded shared technology, formed partnerships. You would gain more with less cost, and others would want to work with you instead of fearing you. The ambassador was shaking with rage. Weakness. You describe weakness. No, Queen Velsira said. She had been listening intently. He describes evolution. The Kresh Dominion is powerful, yes. But you are isolated. You have no real allies, only conquered subjects. The human asks, what if you tried something different? The Galactic Council observers were nodding. Other species representatives looked interested. Taeyang could see it in their faces. He wasn't just arguing with the Kresh. He was showing everyone a different way. The Kresh ambassador finally sat down. We withdraw our challenge. For now. The tension in the room released like a breath. Taeyang felt his legs shaking and sat down before he fell over. He had just won a trial by combat without throwing a single punch. It was the most human thing he had ever done. Queen Velsira turned to her court. The human has passed the trial of innovation. More than passed it. He created something valuable from broken tools. He showed generosity by offering his design freely. And he defeated a challenge to his honor using wisdom instead of violence. The trials are complete. Taeyang Park is worthy. The formal bonding ceremony happened 3 days later. It was not like a human wedding. There were no vows of eternal love or promises to cherish each other forever. Instead, it was a partnership agreement. Taeyang would serve as consul of innovation, working to bridge human and Velkari technology. Queen Velsira would ensure Earth's protection and support as humanity expanded into the galaxy. Taeyang's family arrived from Earth for the ceremony. His mother cried the entire time. His father kept asking Velkari guards technical questions about their armor, and Sora spent the whole event live streaming to her followers. After the official part, Queen Velsira found Taeyang on a quiet observation deck. You know this changes everything, she said softly. I know, Taeyang replied. No pressure or anything. She laughed that strange, rocky laugh of hers. You made me laugh. That's rare. Most people fear me too much to be funny around me. She looked out at the stars. When I chose you, I thought I was being impulsive, choosing the first real person I had met in years. But I was right. You are exactly what both our peoples needed. Someone who sees problems and solves them. Someone who builds bridges instead of walls. I still can't believe I sat in that chair by accident, Taeyang said. Maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe the universe has a sense of humor. She turned to face him. This partnership. It can be whatever we make of it. Political, friendly, or perhaps, she paused. More, but there's no rush. We have time. Yeah, Taeyang said, feeling his face heat up. Time is good. 6 months later, Taeyang's water purification system was being used across 12 different alien species. His engineering firm, Park Systems, had become a major galactic corporation. Jiho ran the Human Velkari Scientific Exchange Program. And Sora's book, My Brother Married an Alien Queen by Accident, was a bestseller on 3 planets. Earth's position in the galaxy had completely changed. Other species now saw humans as innovators and problem solvers. The small species that barely left their solar system was now a respected voice in galactic politics. All because one engineer sat in the wrong chair. Taeyang and Queen Velsira worked together almost daily now. They had settled into an easy partnership. She handled the politics and military matters. He handled the engineering and innovation projects. They complemented each other in ways neither had expected. One day, during a Galactic Council meeting, a crisis emerged. A deadly disease was spreading through 3 colony worlds. The cure required technology none of the species possessed. Everyone started arguing about jurisdiction and blame. Queen Velsira looked at Taeyang.